Hey, welcome to JG3 Reviews. My name is James, and here I like to explore the world of fountain pens, ink, and paper. And today I have a new fountain pen. Jinhao makes some wonderful, affordable pens, and they've really been stepping up their game the last year or so in nib quality, materials, and different designs. Well, today I'm going to look at one of their newest offerings, which may just look like another 159x159, but it's not that at all. This is the new Jinhao 9019 Dadao, and please, Chinese speakers, tell me exactly what that means. I hear conflicting definitions of what that model name is, so mention those in the comments below if you have more knowledge, which means any knowledge at all, than I have. Anyway, the pen, really large pen, and a double, maybe even triple-sized converter, and a number 8 nib, and people who've been wanting mediums, they do now offer that number 8 nib in a medium, which this is. There's just a lot to look at with this pen. So how about we spin the camera, I grab a cup of coffee, and I'll meet you at the desk and we'll take a closer look. All right, first things first, the look of the pen. So when you first lay eyes on this pen, you're going to go in a couple of different directions at least. For one, you may think it resembles a Jinhao. Well, it does kind of resemble some Jinhaos. We have here the X159, the 9035, and the 159, and certainly in size it's very similar to all of those pens. In design, you might first think, well, that's just another X159, but as you can see, it's actually a good bit larger than that X159, though it does share the number 8 nib from this pen. That's about it. None of the other dimensions are the same. It's really quite a different design. As you can see, the trim is simpler, and that is why some people go another direction in their mind, straight to the Namiki Emperor. That seems to be the pen that has inspired the latest Jinhao, the Namiki Emperor. My first telltale sign to me was not just the size, but that pilot-styled clip with that giant ball there at the end and coming down to a point that just immediately took my mind there. But indeed, it is a Jinhao, and you won't really be mistaking this for an Emperor. So, all of that aside, what does the pen design look like? Well, at the top, of course, it's just that smooth cigar shape. All the way down, really, except for the break of the clip and the trim ring, it's just that classic cigar pen with big proportions on everything, including, again, the giant bowling ball clip, which is quite stiff, but does do a good job going over, say, a dress shirt pocket, that sort of a thing. But it is, I'll warn you, it's a little stiff. Then we come down to that trim ring, which has a really nice taper to it. That's not sharp at all. It's well done. Laser engraved is Jinhao, and I'm not going to say this right. My apologies to Chinese-speaking viewers, but Dadao or Dadao. And if anybody knows for certain what that means, I would appreciate that clarification in the comments. I've seen conflicting reports that it has reference to a certain type of sword, or that it means avenue, and a couple of other things. So if maybe somebody could clear that up for us, I would really appreciate it. I know. Then you have the model number, which is 9019, and that's a little bit different the way they've done that. I kind of like that. And then all the way back around to Jinhao. Then when you're ready to write and you twist that cap, it's going to take you 1, 2, and about half, 2.5 turns to get there. Those are plastic on plastic threads. And then using the Olight Glow Pen as our flashlight today, we can see there is a plastic liner inside that cap. But far more exciting than a plastic lining is that number 8 dual tone steel nib, and this one in medium. Those of you who wanted a medium, they came out with it a while back, and we'll see in the writing test, they did a really good job. I like this medium number 8 nib from Jinhao. The size doesn't really change the writing. I think sometimes people think, bigger nib, better writing. That's not really true. However, it certainly looks better in the proportions in a pen of this size, and so it just is really the only nib that would have made this pen right. So it's really more of an aesthetic thing on a lot of pens that the number 8 nib offers an improvement. You do get a little bit more springiness over their number 6 and certainly over their number 5, which is kind of a nail, but is a really good number 5. So there are some things about it, but mainly it's the aesthetics on these large pens that it really improves. Then you have that great big plastic feed, holds a lot of ink, and it really does hold a lot of ink. I dip tested this pen before this review rather than filling up that converter so that I could just save myself a little bit of cleaning, and I could write quite a long time just dipping this pen in the bottle of ink. Then looking at the ergonomics of the pen. So it is a large diameter pen and grip. However, I find it a pretty comfortable pen to write with. No issues there at all. And notice that there is almost no step down at all. That makes that really nice if you're trying to find a good comfortable spot. That's not something you're going to be concerned about, and those threads don't feel bad at all. So very comfortable pen to me to write with, more than long enough to write with unposted, and I think probably a great pen for someone with large hands. It does post and is not unwieldy. Obviously, is there a little bit of back weight? Well, of course there is. I think once you get the pen filled with ink, that all kind of evens out, and I find it to be comfortable. As I mentioned earlier, this has a nice taper to it, and so that also aids that it doesn't annoy you there where the cap is going to hit your hand. Posting is secure, no issue there, and again, not an unwieldy, unbalanced pen when posted. But let's get to the even better part of this pen. Now, before we get there, let me just say there is an O-ring there. I love that Jinhao is including O-rings on so many of their pens now. And getting to that converter, just for a second here, take a gander at that converter. Now, that is a screw-in converter, so don't yank on it when you get it. It is that Chinese standard size, which means, of course, it takes Jinhao cartridges, obviously, but it will also take international standard cartridges. They're off by a couple of tenths of a millimeter, but they do work in the pen should you need to. But why would you need to? You have this wonderful large capacity converter, which is upgraded not only in its size, but also in its hardware. I think the gold tone on this is kind of a nice touch to match the rest of the hardware of this pen, and it even looks great. And they didn't have to make the converter look great, but they did, and I like it when pen companies take that much care in their design, especially on a budget pen. And I think this is going to be a pretty popular thing, and I hope that they can expand this to some newer or upgraded models. Hint, hint, X159 2.0 would be great with this converter, I think. But right now, this is the only pen they offer it in, so be aware of that. If you want the larger converter, you're going to need the 9019. At the moment, at the pace that Jinhao has been working lately, maybe it won't take long for them to make some of those changes. So that's the overall design of the pen. The fit and finish are really just fantastic in this price range. All right, before we compare it to some standard-sized pens, let's go through some Jinhaos right quick. This is the Jinhao 9019 we're looking at today. Then the 159. Now, this is a classic Jinhao model. First pen ever reviewed here on the channel. A great deal then. Still a decent deal, but outclassed by Jinhao's own offerings like the updated X159 in resin, which is just lighter and more comfortable to use in long writing sessions, has a more tasteful clip, and that number 8, in this case, medium nib. It just, terrific update to the 159 line. And then another pen that it's been a while since I reviewed this. A couple of years ago, they had this wood pen come out, the 9035, and it was before Jinhao really started updating their number 6 nibs. So the nib was okay, but newer Jinhao nibs are much better. But it still is a pen that I think is worth looking at. It's a good deal on a wooden pen, and it's kind of a neat classic basic style, and kind of has faded from people's attention, but kind of a neat pen. You might check out that older review. But all those pens are big. What does it look like next to pens that are of a more standard size? Well, I think first we would compare it to the Lamy All-Star or Lamy Safari in its plastic version. And there you can see really how big this pen is. It's much larger around than that Lamy All-Star and a good bit longer. And the Lamy All-Star is not a small pen itself. And then here's a very standard sized Platinum Prefante, about the same size as a Platinum Preppy. And there. I mean, really, it's almost twice the size, isn't it? And then here is the Jinhao 51A, a Parker 51 styled pen. As you can see here, there is commonality in the clip, but nothing else. Size-wise, it is absolutely dwarfed by the new 9019. All right, uncapped, you can see that lengthwise, it's pretty standard length. It's actually shorter than the All-Star and shorter than the 51A, but longer than that Prefante. Winning definitely, though, in the nib size and in the size of that grip. And I don't think you could get any more different an array of grip sizes, lengths, and shapes than in this lineup of pens. All right, and then in its posted length, just barely coming up short of what really is a pretty long pen, the Lamy All-Star, and then really trouncing the 51A and the Platinum. And then I know some of you will be wondering how these Jinhaos all compare to each other, and there they are in their posted lengths. All right, let's see how the pen writes. This is the Jinhao 9019. With what I think is a great medium nib. Writes very smoothly. The proportions of that number 8 are great on this pen. Plenty wet. Ink today. You can see it up there in the corner, can't you? Is Monteverde. I'm going to write MV for that. You know what it means. I just told you. It is their Sapphire. Comes from their gemstone collection of inks. Really, really good set of inks, I think. That is just light and a little bit sloppy, I must admit. That's no pressure, medium pressure, plenty of pressure. Not a lot of difference there. You can maybe get a little bit of something out of that, but I think if you want any variation, you're going to go with the fine so that you can see it a bit better. The medium is a medium. Write it as a medium and don't look for variation much. That would be my take on that. And I do think the fines that I have just a bit more springiness to them, but they're still steel nibs. And so they are what they are. They don't have the cutouts to give them flex or anything like that. So it really shouldn't be the expectation. So what you get is, see, a pretty standard line regardless. I'm going for precision here. And this is why I was going to be an architect instead of an artist. I needed tools to help me write straight lines. Then I decided, what am I even bothering with that for? And God just called me to something else entirely. It's funny, when I'm writing with a new pen, I don't even know how I came to choose some of these words, but I kind of write the same things most of the time, just to kind of test out a pen and see how it writes and how it kind of looks on paper. I don't know if I was going for a variety of letters or just what, but I kind of settled on town names. Every now and then I switch it up to other things. Defunct car makes. I write the words Hudson and Packard and Studebaker and things like that a lot, just to kind of give me some different words to see how a pen writes. I think it's interesting what different people write, Egypt and minimum and all of those kinds of things too, people write, just to see how does a nib actually put ink to paper and variation and things like that. So, as I said, this is a pretty wet medium that came in this pen, and of course, different inks are going to perform differently as well. But what you see here is a good wet pen with a smooth, almost, I would say, medium to broad line on this example. All right, let's do the quick scribble test. The only thing I see, a little bit right there is a skip. Everything else looks great. Let's do this. Yeah, that was probably me either turning or lifting. So not bad at all. All right, closing remarks on this pen. Good value for the money. I mean over-the-top value. That large capacity converter is almost enough to buy the pen, although if it was in a piece of junk, I would tell you to avoid it. But this is not. This is a really nice feeling pen. I think the simplicity, fewer junctions of trim and all of that, I think the simplicity of this pen just makes it feel even better. It's really well put put together. I like it. And that number 8 medium nib, if you like a medium nib, run out and get you one of these, whether it's in this or the X159. Either way, you're going to want the nib in whichever pen floats your boat, because it really is a nice writing medium nib in both those pens that I've gotten it in. And I like this navy blue, but you can get it in black, you can get it in demonstrator, and I'm kind of shocked that I didn't get a demonstrator, but I just thought this pen had a really nice, tasteful look to it. Not all jumbo pens pull that off as well as they should, but this one does, and it's a nice looking pen, a great feeling pen. It writes well. It has better capacity than normal. I'm not seeing a reason to ward you off from this pen at all. I'm really pleased with it, and I think you might want to check it out if you like a pen in that size. That would be the only thing, is if it's just too big a pen for you to use. If it's not, be sure and check out the 9019. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Thank you for liking, sharing, subscribing, and God bless you. And I hope you really do have a wonderful week.